In previous videos, we've ranked every version of Link and every version of Zelda. Now it's time to take a look at the King of Evil himself by ranking every version of Ganon. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Ryan here from Game Essays. This channel is all about covering some of my favorite video game series, including The Legend of Zelda and Pokemon. We like to sprinkle in some other types of videos as well. Today, we are taking a look at ranking every version of Ganon/Ganondorf. Now, I want to set the table here because things are going to work a little bit differently. If you've seen the Link and Zelda videos, basically the rule we went by was we ranked every specific Link and Zelda character. So for instance, in Ocarina and Majora's Mask, those two games, it's the same Link, so we did rank them as one Link. Now, for those kind of in the know with the lore of Legend of Zelda, there really is truly only two Ganons throughout the entire history. There's the one we're most familiar with, which is in pretty much every single game except for Four Swords Adventures, and then there's Four Swords Adventures Ganon. So to make things a little bit more interesting, instead of just ranking two Ganons, we are going to look at Ganon/Ganondorf individually in every single game. So again, I know it is the same Ganon through almost every single game, but it wouldn't be an interesting list if we just had two. So, and obviously we would know who would be the better Ganon because one has had way more lore and history to it, and then one is basically just in one game that a lot of people actually haven't even played that much of. So the table has been set. So let's get into the rankings. I think we might as well start. I'm just going to go with kind of how the list ordered it. So we'll go from there. Maybe I'll bounce around. We'll see. Yuga Ganon, I'm going to come right out and say Yuga Ganon is kind of a D for me. I thought Yuga was a fine enough villain on his own. I thought A Link Between Worlds was a great game, and this is kind of the ultimate game for me where I felt like Ganon was really kind of shoehorned into this story that he really didn't need to be in. There's not really much else to say. It just kind of felt like it was kind of thrown in there. I know there's like maybe a little bit of sprinkles of hints more of him through the game, but to me, the first time playing it, I just felt like it was really forced, and I think and I know it's like a spiritual sequel to A Link to the Past, but that doesn't mean you have to have Ganon in it, and like I said, it just felt really forced to me, and might be one of kind of the worst iterations they've done for Ganon. Okay, Calamity Ganon. Calamity Ganon. I'm going to put this at a C for now. I might change it depending on where I put other things, but this is definitely a Ganon that is not super interesting. I mean, the whole lore that they get into in Breath of the Wild is interesting, but Ganon himself is not really interesting because he's just kind of this malice incarnate now and he's not like plotting this big scheme. It's really just like it's taking over. It's just this being now, this entity that just like takes over things and turns them evil. I think we're going to get a lot more in Breath of the Wild too, but for now, it's interesting like in concept. But in execution, he wasn't really the best villain. It wasn't like an interesting villain that like developed. It's not really a character. It's just this like entity, and it's more of like this idea. So for that, I think it's just a C. Like it's not terrible, but I wish we got a little bit more there. And I know like Age of Calamity kind of gives us a teeny bit more, and then through the memories and stuff and kind of the history behind it, I think that's what brings it up to a C, is just kind of the story that Impa tells about like 10,000 years ago. Some of that lore is interesting, and I think that's what kind of keeps it from a D. Now, Four Swords Adventures Ganon. I would probably put I'd probably put as like a C above Calamity Ganon. Now, I do like that he kind of gets like this origin story that he is another Gerudo male kind of born, with the Gerudo tribe, and the Trident of Power kind of turns him basically into this new Ganon. So it's kind of this cool story, but it's just so odd and just doesn't really fit and kind of screws up everything else. But in terms of a character, I think he's kind of cool, and I think he's more interesting to me than Calamity Ganon. Again, Four Swords Adventure is a game I'm a little bit more hazy on, so if you guys in the comments if you think he should be higher, let me know, but I think kind of like on the high end of C is okay. The Shadow, it's not even really Ganon, the Shadow from A Link to the Past. I'll just probably throw this in C, as in, like, it was a cool little cameo, but it's not really Ganon anyway. But I'll just throw it in there. I'm using somebody else's tier list, so there you go. And also I'll kind of throw in this Return of Ganon here too, at the low end of C, of like, it's not really counting as Ganon, it's just the game over screen for Zelda 2. So it's there because it's like a nice little touch, basically. So I guess Yuga Ganon would be better. Maybe I'll just put, can I add another row here? Add a row below. Let's just, there we go. We'll just say nice, like cameo. There we go. So it's in a new category. Just make sure that doesn't screw up my screen here. But that's okay, yeah, it looks fine. There we go. So it's just like a fun little cameo. It doesn't really count as Ganon to me. Original Legend of Zelda, I think he's got to be also probably a C. We don't really see him throughout the game. I know this is kind of like the limitations of the NES, that this Ganon is kind of just, we get the backstory that he's trying to get the Triforce of Wisdom, so Zelda breaks it up and spreads it across. But this, maybe, yeah, I'd probably put him above Four Swords, because he's pretty cool in that, like, he's invisible and you need like silver arrows to kill him, and he's pretty tough. You need like the sword and the silver arrows, so he's kind of a badass on that front. So I'll put him above Four Swords Adventures. But there's not much to him other than, he's trying to get the Triforce of Wisdom. I think he has the Triforce of Power. So he's pretty cool for that, the whole silver hours thing. Let's go to A Link to the Past. Now, Link to the Past, Ganon, I think he has to be an A. He's pretty awesome. He has the full Triforce. He actually obtains the full Triforce, so he's one of the more badass Ganons for sure. Again, you need silver arrows to kill this dude. He is in the dark. He basically has his own kingdom in the dark world. And then he's got Aghanim, basically like his spirit essentially in the light world. He's able to, he almost kidnaps Zelda, and then he does actually kidnap Zelda. I was thinking the beginning of the game versus kind of like, when he captures her later before you go in the dark world. Yeah, this Ganon, you don't want to mess with this dude. Like I said, he obtains a full Triforce, makes an entire dark world. He's pretty insane, so I gotta give him an A for that. Now, where do we put Ocarina Ganon? For me, Ocarina Ganon, maybe Link to the Past Ganon should be S tier. I'm going to do it. I'm going to put A Link to the Past Ganon, just like I said. He gets the full Triforce, and he's kind of a badass. So I would put him as an S tier. We get some story beats in the manual and stuff about kind of like him as Ganondorf Dragmire or whatever. I'm going to put Ocarina Ganon at an A. We get a lot more of Ganondorf's origin story. I'm like struggling here. I think he's an A. Because we're kind of looking at not necessarily like powerful, but like accomplishments and the character themselves. Yeah, I'm struggling here, but I'm gonna put Ocarina Ganondorf / Ganon at an A. He's kind of one step ahead of Link and Zelda at the beginning. He's able to have his own kingdom, kind of like A Link to the Past. Ganon in sort of the future, 7 years into the future, and then he only obtains the Triforce of Power though, so he fails to defeat Link. He does turn into Ganon, as we see, but he never wields the full Triforce and is ultimately sealed by the sages. So I would say Link to the Past, Ganon is more successful, although Ganon does rule for 7 years in Ocarina of Time as well. But from a character standpoint, I would say Ocarina Ganondorf's a little more interesting, but I kind of want to give just the edge to Link to the Past, Ganon. I kind of want to put this Ganon as like a nice cameo, but he is like actually Ganon from the Oracle games. I'll put this above. No, I'll put this just below Four Swords. Is it Calamity? No, he's worse than Calamity Ganon. He'll be at the low end of C. Like I said, I almost want to put it as a nice cameo because I think it's a cool ending, even though it's this kind of mindless Ganon that we get at the end of the Oracle games. I just thought it was really cool that the Game Boy games incorporated Ganon, even if it is like this botched resurrection or whatever. I thought it was a fun cameo for him, but because it is technically like a true Ganon, I'll just put it at the low end of C. Because I like it. It felt less forced to me than Yuga Ganon. I feel like I will get a lot of crap for the whole Yuga Ganon thing. Maybe not. We'll see. And then Twilight Princess Ganon / Ganondorf. I am going to... Whoa, where did that go? I'm going to put it at a B. And probably people will come at me for this too, but this Ganondorf will... Again, this is where it felt a little bit forced in the story. I thought Zant was a pretty cool villain, and then as soon as they injected Ganon into the story, Zant felt a lot less cool, unfortunately. Now, he's definitely at a B because the whole execution scene is one of the coolest scenes in any Zelda game. The fact that he like grabs the sage's sword and then kills him with it, and then that's the sword he uses at the end of the game. But he's definitely just not the most interesting Ganon that we've had. And I will say, if you think about it, after he gets put in the Twilight Realm, yeah, he becomes this weird spirit thing, and he has like Zan worshipping him. But then like he just doesn't really do anything until the end of the game. So Zant's kind of doing most of the dirty work, but then they kind of do Zant dirty at the end of the game where he kind of becomes a joke, and that disappointed me. Like, I'm okay with him being like this wacky character, but it felt like, and I enjoy Zant's boss fight, but it felt like Ganon really just destroyed the story in kind of a way. And yes, it's an epic final fight with Ganon, and I will definitely say that's another thing that ranks him high. But again, it just feels like he doesn't do much. The world gets taken over in Twilight, but it just doesn't feel like enough's happening. And Ganon just kind of sits on the throne until you're ready to fight him. It felt a little weird. It felt like there should have been more pressure. There should have been more things going on. So it's just like I said, it's an awesome spectacle, and I love the design and everything. But I think Ganon's inclusion in this game was a little bit of a disappointment. Now, Wind Waker, I think, is the best Ganon in all of Zelda. Like I said, we all know it's like the same character technically. But anyway, Ganon in Wind Waker, he's not the strongest, but he is by far to me the most interesting character, is where they do the character part best. So if we kind of were looking at things on two spectrums, like the character aspect and what they do in the story aspect, like that's what carries A Link to the Past Ganon to the top, is the fact that, you know, full wielding the Triforce, has the Dark World, etc. But his character isn't as interesting. But in Wind Waker, Ganon's character is everything because he's really not super strong. In fact, you don't even really fight him as Ganon because he uses instead his magic to basically create Puppet Ganon. And then you end up fighting Ganondorf at the end. But the thing is, I really love, he's much more cunning in his planning. He's secretly trying to basically find Princess Zelda. He's staying a little bit more under the radar until things basically heat up. And he's not as powerful, so he has to be more strategic. And he's been defeated before, so he's more humble. Whereas Twilight Princess Ganon hasn't faced that same defeat yet, so he's not quite as cunning or anything like that. And the fact that there's almost a sympathetic aspect to Ganon in this game. Like, sure, it's not justified, but for a moment you actually do feel bad for him in some ways. So I think just overall the execution of Ganon's story in Wind Waker is the best, and that's why I think he is the best Ganon. So that's pretty much where I stand. Like I said, I'm struggling a little bit on Ocarina versus A Link to the Past. So if you guys want to convince me one way or the other on those, I think I'm pretty firm on Twilight Princess. But again, I love having these conversations. This list is by no means a perfect list, so feel free to, hold my feet to the fire in the comment section, because I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on these things. But that's going to do it for me. Like I said, I did do other videos on Link and Zelda, and I have plenty of other tier lists on the channel as well. So if you want to check those out, make sure to look on the channel. And if you enjoy this content, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.